a small private practice, a larger practice, if you are the CEO, COO, CFO of a hospital system, nurse practitioners, dentists, pharmacists, or you are on the health side of life sciences in producing new drugs, or if you're bringing in products importing from other countries and you're not paying attention to the details regarding tariffs, which is part of this administration and this administration's focus. They are focusing on the healthcare sector and immigration. And they've taken agents from FBI, DOJ, and moved them from normal duties into watching everything you do. And nowadays, with artificial intelligence, along with their analytics departments, they're able to train their artificial intelligence bots or computer systems that if they're focusing on one item, something out of the ordinary, and another system is focusing somewhere else, but they're able actually to combine forces without without humans getting involved. So we're going to be talking about healthcare and federal procurement fraud. You are the Department of Justice number one target. And this started back, I'm going to open this up, where towards middle end of 2025, they were on a roll. Department of Justice had a $14.6 billion targeting healthcare convictions. And the convictions ranged, for the most part, they were False Claims Act, which means that there's financial penalties, sometimes very significant financial penalties. But as we get into 2026, some of these financial penalties are going to have a criminal attachment. And so it's important to be able to go through this. Most of us, this is your dream and your future that you've spent years and countless dollars on your education through medical school, through residencies, through developing articles that have been peer reviewed, and you may have taken out significant loans. So nobody gets out of bed in the morning and wants to sabotage their entire life. But sometimes there are incremental steps that you don't see that over time can get you in trouble. And so right here, it's that many of us are devoted to years of training, sacrifice, and education to help patients. And that's been the goal. It's not to practice under the threat of Department of Justice scrutiny and artificial intelligence or AI-driven investigations. Because if they look hard enough, and if you're familiar with just tax codes and tax laws, and if they look hard enough, they can find something. And so, unfortunately, it is up to all of us to be able to have policies and procedures in place, along with internal audits, to help us at least be a step ahead of the Department of Justice. And this goes back to 2005 that they started on healthcare and immigration. There's too much exposure. It's financial, but now criminal liabilities are a real possibility. And as I said, nobody gets up in the morning saying we're going to commit a crime today. And if you're on the tail end of this, where you have either pled guilty or been convicted via trial, that there have been times where, looking back, if you look back honestly, were small events, created this monster that is really hard to get from being under. And don't think because you are CEO, CFO of a large hospital system, the Department of Justice can go after you too. So as I say here, they're constantly using AI and data analytics, and they flag unusual billing patterns of anomalies. And so it's important for each of us, and if it's a large system, to have, in addition to be auditing, having an independent party, or you're either in-house counsel, an independent party, someone on your staff, where you do audits of how your billing has been. You're making sure that everything is documented. You don't want to be caught with having charting that is not up to scrutiny, because again, if you are billing way outside the numbers of a certain procedure that is normal for your particular geographic area, you may wind up getting flagged. This is a national seminar that's coming up, I believe. And if I open that up, this is the Live and Rise National 2026, CMS, DOJ, OIG, and the future of Medicare enforcement and the use of AI. So this was March 24th of 2026. So what you don't want to be is a dog in this fight. Prevention includes following your policies and procedures and implementing these internal and external audits to make sure you're following those policy and procedures while keeping up with the billing and all these billing and coding updates. Because you feel that, you've worked real hard, you've been 3 years in practice, you've established a hospital, you've established, a practitioner's office, or there's multiple practitioners there. All of a sudden, now what? This is kind of too late to figure out that you've caught the car. But has anyone been watching, your day in and day out charting and documentation of everything you're doing? In many cases, exposure doesn't rise from the single intentional act, but from incremental decisions over time. And rationalized contact that this is okay, it's not that big a deal, but it begins to erode on internal controls. And that's where an independent auditor, someone that is paid either within your business of practice or outside, to be able to, catch this stuff, because you just don't want to be caught, something that could have been prevented. And I'll touch on this later, but in billing coding, for example, if you're billing and you're billing either the highest level code or you're using modifiers that aren't appropriate, it's good to catch that ahead of time. Here in New Jersey, physical therapists, it's not a False Claim Act. They got this individual 12 months in prison for healthcare fraud. For healthcare executives, compliance officers, federal contractors, and they're looking at federal contractors very carefully, because now, if you're a contractor, in addition to everything else you have to deal with, it's DEI, and what, in my opinion, is nonsense. But they're going after, if you do not have a policy or not following your policy, if you cannot defend it, it could be a problem. And for participants across the healthcare supply chain, the line is no longer defined solely by statute or regulations. It's increasingly being defined by data, algorithms, and billing patterns. And these predictive analytics and AI-driven, these are enforcement models. But again, each of these AI-driven enforcement model, if they're targeting an individual or specific issue, and several of them can actually get together and combine to make the charges against you much harder to defend. Defense contractors can be charged with bribery and fraud in the Army Specific Innovation Campus deal. This is just one example. Another is contractors beware of the antitrust division, double downs on procurement, bid rigging. And this is stuff that you just don't, you're trying to get a contract, but you don't want to influence it in any way in your favor. And the CFO of a Boston area spinal device company pled guilty to a kickback scheme. And so this is a national fraud enforcement division that's very, very big. Unmistakable priority: healthcare and procurement fraud. Department of Justice made clear that its policies, public statements, and recent enforcement action that healthcare fraud and federal procurement fraud remain among its highest priorities. And this is the woman who's the center of a sprawling fraud case that you wound up 42 years in prison. And so it's not, you don't want to be surprised, because you're under scrutiny. Artificial intelligence, data analytics, they work 24/7, 365. They don't need bathroom breaks or lunch breaks. They don't complain. They don't want to raise. They're constantly looking. And if they begin to find something that is part of your practice, you want to address it as soon as possible. So that even if something you're doing is on the negative side or is not legal, if you have these policies and procedures in place and this happened, at least it gives your attorney and counsel a little bit of breathing room to say that you were, this was an honest mistake, that granted, this was not correct, but at least, it's a conversation that your attorney can have with the Department of Justice. The structural shift I've already covered. Enforcement and data is done by AI. And again, this iteration is these individual AI tools can work individually, teams of specialized agents, each with their own AI individual target, and they can get together and really give you, put you at the center of a large either false claim act or criminal act, if you will. The DOJ has institutionalized reliance on advanced data analytics and intelligent machine learning. And this is from the DOJ report. AI in the criminal justice system helps shareholders wrestle with critical questions about the use of AI in criminal justice. And they're prepared a summary highlighting the key findings and recommendations. This started from 2024. Four main applications of AI criminal justice are identifying and surveillance, forensic analysis, predictive policing, and risk assessment. As I said, they work for free. They don't want a pay raise or time off, and they're working all their time. And these are used. You go on my website, see this on the cover page, and you should be able to find it. And if you have questions, please feel free to give me a call. Dr. Blatstein, I've been where you are. My phone is 240-888-7778. The Civil Division has formally acknowledged sophisticated analytics have become increasingly important in identifying fraud trends. So that if you hear rumors that the FBI has been asking questions, it's time to take notice and take this seriously, get a legal team involved, because the shift is operationalized through initiative like focus, fraud, oversight, and careful use of statistics. Again, this is all the time. I'll open it. Well, let's see if I can open this up so you can look at it. Yep. And this for those data monitors that go through and they sift through everything online. And there's been an increase in the amount of, how do I make this larger? There we go. Because these right here complaints, these are people that basically turn in whistleblower complaints. And so it's a very big deal because you now have people that maybe are part of your organization, another organization, or just trying to data mine everything there is out there about you. And then they get money from the Department of Justice if they succeed. Data mining, Assistant Attorney General emphasized the department's actively seeking engagement with data analytics capable of identifying fraud signals, noting that participants must demonstrate how their methodologies provide reliable basis and actual false claim act matters. This is regarding this is all for whistleblowers because they're trying to keep whistleblowers. They want whistleblowers to give them clean information that they can act on, not something that's hypothetical. Fraud detection is no longer reactive. It's a continued data-driven and scalable model. Coordinated enforcement, the strike forces, the DOJ is expanding their outreach. We've all read this is June 1 of 2026, where they expanded through the Midwest and California. It's a very big deal. April 30, 2026, they announced the creation of the West Coast Healthcare Fraud Task Force. And you can see, I'll open this over here, so you'll see that this is April 30th, the Fraud Division launched the West Coast Strike Force. Again, they're going after healthcare fraud schemes. All right, I don't want to minimize this. The result is that the woman that we already reviewed, she got a 42-year sentence. AP News, the Justice Department, however, said that she was at the top of the single largest COVID-19 fraud in the country. And in her statement to the courts, I understand I failed, and it goes on and on. For both counsel and operators, the takeaway is clear. Enforcement coordinated data enabling is accelerated. CMS, AI, and rising compliance, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Special Services introduced what's called wiser initial wasteful and inappropriate sentencing reduction. This is an artificial intelligence model. And I'll open this here for a moment. Let's see if this, and there's wiser is, they go through all of, they're looking for you. They're looking at everything you're doing. If everything is squeaky clean, which we can find something on everyone if we look hard enough, you need to at least show that you've done the bare minimum. AI-assisted documentation building may serve as enforcement triggers. Providers remain responsible for the outputs and accuracy of AI-supported processors. What this means is that if you are using either in your practice a billing service, an outside billing service, if you're the CEO of a large hospital system, and for the procedures that are done on persons in your hospitals, or you're taking this to an outside service, it doesn't matter. You're responsible what they do, even if you're paying an outside vendor to do it. The buck stops at your desk. The result is new compliance reality. Organizations are accountable not only for contact, but for the systems they rely on. Reality of the consequences: multi-year, even decade prison sentences. Someone in Middle District was sentenced for 63 months in federal prison. This is PPP loan fraud. Here's DOJ, $2 million in data from a Medicare fraud for healthcare providers. These are false claim act penalties, but they can turn criminal. Reputational damage, you can be excluded from programs. Activities rising from antitrust for hospitals through Law 360. And so you don't want to be excluded from Medicare, Medicaid, private carriers. Enforcement actions increasingly originate from data analytics, which are showing statistical things that are outside of the normal or above what is normal for your geographic area. Whistleblowers, including those who are data miners, just scrub the internet. If a DOJ has reported, Department of Justice had noted, data miners, external actors analyzing public data sets are now responsible for what they find. So you're not insulated if you use a billing service, for example, that is you hire from the outside. If you're running a hospice or home health agency, this is a 60-second clip, that is, you could find very important. A narrow but meaningful option, voluntary self-disclosure. You want to have lawyers with you at every step of whatever you do in any of these examples. Corporate enforcement voluntary self-disclosure continues to provide incentives for organizations that act early. In other words, if you find something, first fix it. If you are having your internal audits, if you have policies and procedures that are not being followed, but they're there, begin to document and date what the changes that you're making. DOJ policy simplified. Companies that self-report early, fully cooperate, fix the problems, may come out okay. They may receive lenient outcomes, no prosecution, non-prosecution agreement, reduced penalties, but these depend on Department of Justice that they reward companies that come to the table early to fix these issues. But serious wrongdoings or delays can reduce or eliminate those benefits. And this is from Principles of Federal Prosecution of Business Organization. All these links I have here in this report. And they go through everything: civil, tax, corporate, federal prosecutors, general considerations of corporate liability, individual wrongdoers. It's something that you need to go through. So it doesn't matter whether you are a large system or an individual practice. If they look hard enough, they're going to find something. So you need to be prepared for that. From awareness to action for legal advisors and business leaders alike, the implications are clear. Implications: assume your data is continually analyzed for anomalies, not by you, but by Department of Justice. Expect our external triggers, whistleblowers, regulators. Investigations begin before they're internally detected. That hopefully does not happen. What to do: run targeted data-driven compliance audits, review AI and automated decision-making, strengthen your internal controls for documentation, involve experienced counsel when risks emerge. The bottom line is that the organizations need to shift from reactive compliance to proactive, because even though you may be doing everything you think is appropriate, there is 24/7 analyzation by AI representing the Department of Justice that is looking, and they could find something. And so it's better for you to find it in-house than not. Enforcement is shifted from reactive to predictive. Intent still matters. Recent actions highlight this shift, with nano analytics playing a significant role for healthcare and federal contractors. Compliance basics, policies, audits are now the starting point. The margin for error is shrinking, and the cluster of mistakes is rapidly rising. This is all in addition to things that shouldn't be, which are either going to be they're looking at DEI and or false claims act fraud. You don't want to be hiding if you're importing from other countries. Don't try and skate on taxes. Everybody tries to, but if you get caught, the Department of Justice is looking to make an example. And so they seized 2 million of data-driven Medicare fraud. Key insights: healthcare providers, national law review. If you hear that the FBI has been asking questions, as I said, you need legal representation. And it's possible to have winning is a possibility through strategic conversation with counsel, but also it's important to have had your counsel involved all along so that they are aware of the policies and procedures and internal audits that you already have in place. Choosing your legal team, I have here 14 questions that you can, for you to ask your legal team. If you click on that, I'm not going to go to this right now. I'll just show you that. Choosing a legal team, practices federal criminal defense and federal court. It goes on and on through 14 type individual questions, but acquittals are possible. This Maryland doctor seeked $50 million after the DOJ fails the Russia case. And this is through Law 360. So you can, this conversation between you and your counsel is that you can go to trial and win. But otherwise, if you've been convicted at trial or pled guilty, do you have a plan to reduce your time and influence where you serve? Here's where I'm more than willing to talk to you. But this is where the expertise comes, because shorter sentencing options, mitigation credits, legal reductions, better placement, facility programs, conditions, early release pathways, good time credit, other individual programs, proactivity, spending less time and serve it under the best possible conditions. Essentially, if you're going to be pled guilty, you don't want to rely on your attorney. Your attorney is going to put together a sentencing memorandum and they know the law. But in understanding that your personal background, a compelling autobiographical background, is going to be something that will help you, will get either all their information ahead of time for you to give to your probation officer, that will allow them to, one, have respect for you because they have, they understand that you understand the seriousness of the offense, and that you've provided everything they needed in a timely fashion and respected their time. your sentencing autobiographical narrative can help you. This is very quick YouTube. And then I have here, if you go again, look online for this article, which starts out healthcare federal fraud, healthcare and federal procurement fraud are you DOJ target. I hope this makes sense. There's a lot here and that you found this helpful. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and have a good day. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking your time to tune into my videos. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to give me a call. I'm a physician. Too, I've been through the federal system and I was able to get my medical license reinstated. And I'd like to be able to pass on what I've learned to you. Again, thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I hope everyone has a safe day.